Today we're doing something different. This is not a list of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, it's a list of the best physiques ever. Imagine every bodybuilder in history lined up on the same stage, all in their absolute prime, judged by modern standards, mass, conditioning, density, and completeness. In that scenario, legacy, titles, and nostalgia don't matter. Only the physique does. And that also means one uncomfortable truth. As iconic as the golden era was, those physiques simply wouldn't be competitive against modern bodybuilders under today's criteria. This list is about what wins now, not what meant the most then. I recently did a top 50 greatest bodybuilders of all time list, including every era, so you might want to check out that video as well. You can find it in the description. So this here is my top 50 best bodybuilding physiques of all time, judged purely on how they would stack up on a modern stage at their absolute peak. And of course, when doing such a complex video, don't expect no mistakes. This is also meant to start a conversation about this interesting subject. I'm not claiming I have the experience or the expertise to definitively decide such a list. Let's do this. The best bodybuilder of all time is Ronnie Coleman, and that should already be common knowledge. Even his biggest rivals admit it, love it or hate it, bodybuilding reached its absolute peak with Ronnie Coleman, and honestly, I don't think we're ever going to see anything like it again. He had the frame, the muscle bellies, the completeness, the stature, the wow factor, and an ability to come in condition that, when combined, is simply impossible to match. The second best bodybuilder of all time is Phil Heath. Even though Phil had his critics during his reign, it's becoming more and more common today for people to recognize his greatness and admit that, aside from the great Ronnie Coleman, who is in a league of his own, Phil Heath simply beats everyone else. Arguably the most gifted and complete bodybuilder in terms of muscle groups, he didn't really have any weak points. What prevented him from truly knocking on Ronnie's door was his smaller stature and narrower frame. Otherwise, if we imagine Phil being just as tall and wide as Ronnie, he could probably challenge or even beat him. But that's just hypothetical. Ronnie is undisputedly first, and Phil is most likely the undisputed second. The third best bodybuilder of all time is Kai Greene. While the number 1 and 2 spots are pretty obvious to most people, this third place might come as a surprise to many. Kai Greene never won the Mr. Olympia, but the context matters. He competed during Phil Heath's reign, who is the second best of all time. Arguably, Kai could have beaten Phil on a couple of those occasions. During the early 2010s, Phil and Kai were in a league of their own. What made Kai so dangerous was the combination of Phil Heath-like muscle bellies with Ronnie Coleman-like width. What prevented him from truly dethroning Phil was the fact that he wasn't as perfect overall. Kai had certain weaknesses that were exposed against Phil, but at the same time he also had freaky features that sometimes made Phil look vulnerable as well. The fourth best bodybuilder of all time is Jay Cutler. At his best, Jay went toe-to-toe with both Ronnie and Phil, and he even beat them on the grandest stage. Jay was an incredibly dense and massive bodybuilder, with outstanding features and one of the most complete lower bodies ever. His quad stomp remains arguably the single best photograph in the history of the sport. What places Jay below the 3 guys above him is his overall bone structure, shorter limbs, a longer torso, and a wider waist. Basically the opposite of what you ideally want in bodybuilding. He also never matched them in the back poses. However, he more than compensated with one of the most complete and underrated physiques in terms of pure muscle. The fifth best bodybuilder of all time is Big Ramy. This might surprise many, but hear me out. At his best, Big Ramy had only one issue that prevented him from sitting at the same table as Ronnie Coleman: conditioning. Big Ramy is the only bodybuilder who truly had the potential to match what the king brought to the table. He was taller than the average Olympia winner, wider than both Ronnie and Jay, complete in terms of muscle groups, and he possessed jaw-dropping features like his quads and his insane lat width. Once again, it was his lack of consistent conditioning that kept him from challenging for the very top spots on this list. The sixth best bodybuilder of all time is Dorian Yates, and yes, this might be controversial, but let me clarify. The only reason Dorian doesn't place higher is that he comes from an era when bodybuilding hadn't yet reached its full potential in terms of raw size. He's rightly known as a game changer, the first true mass monster, but being the first comes with the burden of not fully reaching the absolute maximum. Despite some weaknesses like his arms and shoulders, his untouchable features, his back, his calves, and especially his unmatched conditioning, make his 6th place ranking feel almost unfair. Had he competed in the 2000s or later, I truly believe he could have been top 3 on this list, but coming from that bridge era between aesthetics and mass monsters, Dorian earns a highly respectable 6th place. The 7th best bodybuilder of all time is Hadi Choopan, and this might surprise some. He's a relatively shorter bodybuilder, but at his best, he's incredibly powerful. He has one of the widest frames relative to his height, and his conditioning and definition, especially from the front and side, are second to none. Hadi also boasts arguably the most insane and complete abdominal development ever seen, some of the best quads in the sport, and he dominates the mandatory poses. Some may critique his back, but let's not forget that his lat spread is arguably the best in the world today. Only his back double biceps pose falls a little short by comparison. The 8th best bodybuilder of all time is Samson Dauda. Modern bodybuilding brings 2 athletes into the top 8 regardless of what many are saying online. The combination of size, fullness, and conditioning is at its peak today, except for Ronnie, Jay, and Big Ramy, who are anomalies. Samson Dauda is the heaviest Mr. Olympia winner ever, and combined with the fact that he's arguably the most aesthetic winner of the modern era at the same time, that truly says everything about his physique. Just like with Big Ramy, conditioning is the issue that prevents him from placing even higher on this list. But Samson Dauda at his very best is only topped by 7 other bodybuilders in history from a pure bodybuilding point of view. The 9th best bodybuilder of all time is Victor Martinez, the second non-Mr. Olympia winner in the top 10. Victor is very underrated. His physique from 2006 and 2007, before the injuries, was truly something special. Even Ronnie Coleman called him his heir. What I like to say about Victor is that he's almost like a Phil Heath with wider clavicles. He had similar muscle bellies, a very complete back, powerful arms, and on top of that a wider bone structure. Victor Martinez didn't even reach his full potential, making him one of the biggest what-ifs in bodybuilding. Completing the top 10 of the best bodybuilders of all time is Dexter Jackson. Dexter was a shorter bodybuilder with a narrow structure, and those are the main reasons he isn't higher on this list. Otherwise, he was complete from top to bottom, with fully developed arms and back, great abdominals, powerful legs, and always razor-sharp conditioning. Dexter Jackson at his best has the 10th best physique of all time, hands down. In 11th place, we have the second entry from the 90s, which may be surprising for some, Nasser El Sonbati. He is more underrated than many other great bodybuilders from that decade. Nasser had the mass to fare better against the following decades. He was actually an aesthetic mass monster, as I like to say. His front poses and side poses could go up against anyone in history when he was on. He was a bit more underwhelming from the back, and he wasn't always consistent with his posing, but Nasser definitely deserves the highest ranking after Dorian in a list like this, where we count only peak physiques from a modern era perspective. In 12th place, we have Sean Roden, who was more like a modern bodybuilder with a look reminiscent of the 90s. His peak physique was, of course, his Olympia-winning one from 2018, but he was arguably better in earlier years when it came to his arms and upper body overall. Sean's biggest strengths were his lower body, his aesthetic look, his midsection, and his posing ability. After Dorian Yates, he was the only one who could hit the mandatories with a completely relaxed poker face. Number 13 is Dennis Wolf, an often forgotten bodybuilder in lists like this. He was a true mass monster standing over 6 feet tall with a great ability to come in conditioned. He also had a strong lower body and exhibited exceptional width. He was a bit underwhelming when it came to his biceps and at times his back, but arguably at his best ever, which for me was his 2007 Olympia look. His back was actually a strong point. His best Olympia placing was 3rd in 2013, and he is also an Arnold Classic winner. In 14th place, we have another German giant, Günther Schlierkamp. Some of you might argue him over Dennis, and in some regards he was indeed an even more impressive and towering mass monster, but he had less aesthetic proportions than Dennis. However, Günther was an outstanding bodybuilder who always caught the eye on stage, especially during his 2002 season, when he famously beat the reigning Mr. Olympia Ronnie Coleman at the GNC Show of Strength. In 15th place, we have Branch Warren, a very different physique from the two German giants we just covered, but with a different set of qualities. He was a shorter bodybuilder, and the words aesthetic and branch were never synonyms. But the level of hardness and conditioning he presented at his best was arguably second to none on this entire list. Branch also potentially has the most complete lower body of all time, with some of the strongest quads, hamstrings, glutes, and calves ever seen. In 16th place, we have the current Mr. Olympia, Derek Lunsford. Some of you more sensitive people watching this video may get upset at this point, but hate him all you want. At his best, Derek Lunsford has some qualities that are really hard to defeat. He is indeed shorter and he has some of the weakest biceps of any Mr. Olympia winner, but he also has one of the widest frames relative to his height, a crazy shoulder to waist ratio, one of the best backs in the history of the sport, and he is a master of the mandatory poses. In 17th place, we have Nick Walker, and if I didn't lose you with Derek, I might lose you now, but hear me out. I judge bodybuilding more like a rough sport than a beauty contest. When it comes to raw mass and conditioning, Nick Walker is extremely hard to defeat. Despite his proportions, when he keeps his waist in check, he only really suffers in a couple of front poses. On the other hand, he has some of the best biceps of all time, he's lethal from the side and from the back, and he has one of the craziest, most muscular poses ever. I dare all 90s nostalgics to put Nick at the 2023 Arnold or the 2025 Pittsburgh against all your favorite aesthetic physiques. Compare all 8 mandatory poses, not just the front double biceps, and you'll see what I'm talking about. In 18th place, we have another contemporary athlete in Andrew Jacked, who, after the 2026 season, could leapfrog many of the guys ranked ahead of him. Andrew is currently in the best period of his career, with his best shape appearing at the most recent show he did in Romania. Along with mass and conditioning, Andrew also has aesthetics. If he further improves his conditioning without losing fullness, this guy can easily crack the top 10. Once again, what we're judging here is who would win from a pure bodybuilding point of view, and with his qualities, it's hard for many legends to stand next to Andrew on stage at his best. In 19th place, and I know you've been waiting, we have Kevin Levrone. Let me clarify. Kevin's potential was enormous, and I'm a huge fan of his. Given his genetics, if he competed today and gave 100%, I sincerely think he could easily be a top 5 bodybuilder of all time. He's like a combination of a taller Phil Heath, as wide as Dorian Yates, and more aesthetic than both. However, Kevin competed in the 90s, when bodybuilders weren't getting as full as they are today. By the time the 2000s came around, he was no longer at his best. Kevin also never fully nailed his conditioning to truly showcase his absolute peak potential. Closing out the top 20, we have the other 90s legend you guys were waiting for, Flex Wheeler. Just like Kevin, he never reached his full potential as a mass monster. In 1993, when bodybuilders were smaller, he reached near visual perfection, especially at that Arnold Classic. However, that physique wouldn't stand a chance against today's monsters. When it comes to his true peak, I'm thinking of his 1999 physique, when his aesthetics and added mass carried him more than raw conditioning and extreme detail. In 21st place, we have Roy Winkler, a modern mass monster with some of the best arms of all time. He's also one of the most impressive off-season monsters ever. His back and lower body were among his more underwhelming areas. In 22nd place, we have Brandon Curry. If we judged only upper bodies in this video, Prime Brandon would probably be in the top 6. He had some of the best arms, a complete back, wide shoulders, and a tiny waist. His downsides were always his legs, as well as his ability to come in dry. In 23rd place, we have Chris Cormier, and for me, his prime was also in the 90s, even though his career stretched well into the 2000s. In terms of potential, he could have been so much more, but he never reached his full potential due to a lack of tunnel vision toward bodybuilding only. William Bonac finds himself in 24th place, and he's ranked this low because of his small stature, narrow frame and wider waist. Otherwise, in terms of muscle, completeness and conditioning, he could arguably be top 10. He's also one of the most consistent bodybuilders of all time. In 25th place we have Martin Fitzwater, but he hasn't even entered his prime years yet. When we redo this video in 10 years, he'll be much higher. As of now, based on the best we've seen from him, some could already argue that he's ranked too low. He has great potential. In 26th place we have Cedric McMillan, and he's definitely a curious case. We all know bodybuilding was never his main focus, with him serving in the army, but his tall stature, aesthetic lines and complete physique could have achieved multiple Olympia wins and a much higher placement, in my opinion. In 27th place we have Marcus Rule, the ultimate mass monster. Even I feel he might be too low here, but with so many legends on this list, everyone starts to feel underrated at this point. Marcus had incredible mass, especially in the upper body, but his lower body was never on the same level and his conditioning never peaked enough for him to win or seriously contend for major titles. In 28th place we have Gustavo Badel, a very complete bodybuilder. The 2005 Olympia was probably his best shape, and judging by that physique, 28th place again feels too low. He didn't really miss anything, but he also lacked standout wow factor features that would separate him from the pack in this list. In 29th place we have Hunter Labrada, another current competitor who could climb higher before his career is over. He has great qualities, especially his lower body, along with a solid frame and overall muscularity. He still needs to figure out how to peak at 100%, but he could achieve greater things than his dad, at least in terms of placings, if not legacy. In 30th place we have Sean Ray, one of the most complete bodybuilders of all time and also one of the best posers ever. However, as we know, he was a smaller stature bodybuilder from the 90s, which means he lacked the fullness of modern competitors. Because of that, he would be defeated by the other 29 athletes if all were lined up on the same stage at their peak. In 31st place we have Paul Dillett, another mass monster from the 90s, a different kind of mass monster. He was tall and fairly aesthetic with huge wow factor features like his arms and chest. However, his back development and especially his lack of posing ability would likely prevent him from placing higher on this list. In 32nd place we have Akeem Williams, one of the most underrated bodybuilders of all time. Aside from his back, he didn't really lack anything. He had dense muscles due to his training style, a great frame, powerful arms, and some of the best wheels in recent years. That said, he arguably has the weakest back on this list. In 33rd place we have Rafael Brandão, another current competitor who hasn't yet reached his peak. Based on what we've seen so far, he definitely possesses the qualities to deserve this placement. His physique is well balanced and he doesn't seem to have any truly weak poses. The same can be said about Behruz Tabani, who finds himself in 34th place on this list. His potential is huge. He has some rare qualities, combining great arms, a strong back, a tiny waist, and excellent conditioning. He still needs to work on his lower body, but his potential is massive. In 35th place, we have Dennis the Menace James, a true mass monster from the 2000s who had some great years in extremely tough lineups and achieved impressive placings. His lack of aesthetics and proportions were his main drawbacks, but he was an enormous bodybuilder with outstanding features for his time. In 36th place, on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have Tony Freeman. He had some of the finest lines and aesthetic features of his era. Though he wasn't a mass monster like Dennis James, at his best, Tony Freeman could stand toe-to-toe with some of the greatest aesthetic freaks like Flex Wheeler or Sean Roden in a hypothetical matchup, since they never competed against each other in their primes. In 37th place, we have Steve Koklo. He didn't possess the prettiest lines, but he was a massive bodybuilder with great stage presence. During his prime years, the second half of the 2010s and the early 2020s. When he nailed his condition, he could stand toe-to-toe with some of the best. In 38th place, we have Ronnie Rockel, a very complete and balanced bodybuilder. He didn't necessarily have standout features, but he also had no major weak points. He performed well in most mandatory poses, and when he peaked properly, he did quite well on the Olympia stage. In 39th place, we have Dallas McCarver, a prospect who could have ranked much higher on this list if his life hadn't been cut short so early. He possessed a huge frame, incredible arms, and an amazing ability to pack on thick muscle. Dallas remains one of the biggest what-ifs in modern bodybuilding. In 40th place, we have Michal Krizo, who, judging by some photos, could be ranked much higher. His case is an interesting one. He has incredible features like his arms and overall stature, but also some glaring weaknesses, most notably his lower body, an unbalanced back, and a lack of posing ability. In 41st place, we have Lee Priest, and the only reason he's ranked this low is his overall stature. Like it or not, size still matters a lot in bodybuilding, and being the shortest bodybuilder on this list by a significant margin, he would get lost among all these mass monsters regardless of his legendary status. Iain Valliere is in 42nd place, and he's a very different case. He was tall, wide, and packed with hard muscle, but he didn't really have any standout body parts or poses. At his best, he could win smaller shows and contend at the Arnold Classic in the absence of top-tier Olympia athletes. In 43rd place, we have Vitaly Gudvito, and at his best so far, he definitely deserves a spot on this top 50 list already. He's still early in his career and his potential is huge. With some of the craziest legs we've seen in years, if he further develops his back and improves his posing, he could achieve a lot in bodybuilding. In 44th place, we have Melvin Anthony, a bodybuilder whose prime was in the 2000s. At his best, he could probably crack the top 10 at any Mr. Olympia. He had nice muscle bellies and a balanced physique that could beat some top contenders if they didn't come in 100%. The same can be said about our 45th place athlete, Darren Charles. With a wide frame, huge pecs, and impressive peaky biceps, Darren was one of those bodybuilders who could always be a dark horse and surprise anyone. In 46th place, we have Jean-Pierre Fou, another great athlete from the 90s with one of the most underrated backs of that era. However, as good as he was, his lower body development and overall fullness would put him at a disadvantage against most competitors from the 2000s onward. In 47th place, we have Mike Francois, a great bodybuilder from the 90s who won the 1995 Arnold Classic. Mike didn't have a long prime, but at his very best, this placement could arguably be considered too low. In 48th place, we have Vince Taylor, a true legend of the sport. The only reason he's ranked this low is that his prime was in the 90s, when the judging criteria were different. That said, his 6 Masters Olympia wins are still talked about to this day. In 49th place, we have Nathan Diasha, a consistent bodybuilder with balanced features. He didn't really have weak poses, but he also lacked standout wow factor ones. He was dense but without the greatest frame or any truly exceptional features. Still, he absolutely deserves a spot on this list. Closing out the list at number 50 is Juan Morel, a bodybuilder who on his best day could easily win almost any pro show outside of the Olympia or the Arnold Classic. Like I said at the beginning, I'm sure I've omitted some great bodybuilders and probably messed up some placings as well. This video is meant to start a conversation. I'm not claiming to have the knowledge or expertise to definitively rank something this complex.